Good evening, everyone. I am your technical critic, and welcome to the Technical Critique. I finally have to make this video. It is 3:40 in the morning. Whoops. Sorry you didn't see that. I put this off for about 4 hours. And then it's like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. I don't want to do it. Listen, I specifically said I would give Avatar Legend of Korra one more chance if it turned out that there was a story and that was actually good and that they weren't rushing things and that the plots made sense. And episode 1 and episode 2, good job, you tricked me. We learned so much, but we moved so little. I had to watch this episode again maybe 3 or 4 times, and then I had to look at my reaction video just so that I knew how I felt about this episode while I was watching it, because to be quite honest, I don't know what's going on. Let's start with what we learned from this episode. This is my one and only spoilers warning, so if you don't, just skip ahead to whenever I stop talking about it. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but I really don't mind spoiling things, especially when I'm reviewing things, because I find it helps if somebody knows what you're talking about, so that when you critique it, it gives it some kind of context. So, first of all, we learn that Tarlok was betrayed by his brother Umalak. Big shocker, considering that he's been built up as this very bad character. I had some inklings that, you know what, maybe Umalak might be setting Tarlok up, but not with the kind of setup that he did, getting him kicked out of the Northern Water Tribe first of all by employing those brigands, and then having him banished to the Southern Water Tribe. That was that. I kind of saw it coming. I didn't think that they would go that far. That maybe Tarlok might have been partially to blame, and it's because of this that he feels his brother is not fit to rule, and so he has to betray his brother and give us some kind of composition, instead of just, oh, I've been plotting forever to get rid of my brother. I don't want to do this, but kind of like Firelord Ozai in The Searchers. Secondly, that was the first point. Secondly, we learned that Naga has a taste for human flesh. Apparently, Korra has been training Naga to eat people, and I'm not going to spoil that, but it leads to a very violent and much darker side of Korra that you wouldn't think you would see in an Avatar, but apparently that's a thing. So she's trained her polar bear dog to eat people. Honestly, when I first saw that scene, I was like, what the fuck is going on? If I was in this situation, I would be freaking the fuck out. Please pardon my language. Number 3, we learn that Korra is not as dense as she looks. She actually manages to start to suspect something when the trial goes wrong for her father, at the very least. And number 4, we learn that Bolin is too nice to ever be able to escape the clutches of Korra's cousin. He does. The ending implies that he managed to break up with her. We actually learn that she has emotion. I mean, that was pretty implied by that last episode. See, with the twins, it was kind of like they were playing a more arrogant version of Mai, where that's their personality, instead of where Mai is just suppressionistic. the two of them are naturally like that. Plus, they have a superiority complex. But now we see that that at least one of them has some emotion, and this is going to be pretty interesting for the next episode. I mean, that's their hook. You want to find out what happens to Bolin. Honestly, the main plot, you could throw the main plot out the window, and this show would not lose anything. Because they're going over a bunch of concepts, and it just doesn't make sense. For example, there's the idea that the Avatar has to remain neutral, otherwise war is going to happen. Well, war is already happening. I mean, you've got troops from one place invading another place against that place's will. That's the very definition of invasion, and hence warfare. I mean, if you invade somewhere, you're technically at war with them. That's pretty clear. Also, at the very end, Chief Tarlock, he's like, you know what? We can give them a pretty good fight. What fight can you give them? His troops are in your city. There's a blockade on your major port. There are 7 of you versus his entire army already in the city. He's capped, and he has the spirit portal open. He has all of his objective goals. I honestly don't see what they can do. But you know what? Here's the thing. The main plot of this story is extremely predictable. So let's go through it. So Korra opens the spirit portal in what is allegedly an attempt to calm down the spirits, which opens the spirit world to the Avatar world. And now we learn from Tarlock that if the 2 tribes go to war, the spirits are going to get so angry that they're going to overwhelm everything. Well, here's obviously what's going to happen. They're going to go to war, the spirits are going to come up, and because Umalak is the only person who knows some kind of spiritual technique against these dark spirits, Korra is going to be forced to team up with him and go into the spirit world and try to calm everything down. I mean, that's basically my prediction for what's going to happen. Also, we learned that the only reason Tarlock wanted to send Korra to the North Pole is so that she'd be out of the way while he cemented his position there in the South Pole. I honestly thought we were going to go deeper than this, that we were actually going to get into some kind of interesting moral lesson and exploration, but it seems like it's just more of the straightforward. The show's playing like a chess game. I mean, I can see some of the stuff that's going to happen. At the very least, the subplots are interesting. We see with Tenzin and his brother and his sister. I thought they were going to set up for this big reveal with the Avatar and his family, and that something's not right, and there's a juxtaposition, and that there's a split there. But they resolve that in a nice, kindly fashion. You get the father and you get the daughter, and you get the parallels between how she feels about her siblings and how he feels about his siblings, and the 2 of them learn from each other, and they talk to each other, and it's not in a condescending way, the way that some adults are to children, like they know what the answer is to the question already, so they simply trick them into seeing things from a different point of view. No, I thought it was a legitimate turnaround for both of them, that they're both learning from each other, and they're both learning from each other's experience, both older and younger. And in the end, that helped them all to come together as a family and make their unit stronger. And I like that. That was a good lesson. It pushes the story forward, and it gives us something to feel good about. And then, of course, there's the comedy in this episode. I could not stop laughing at all of the comedy. I just have one little nitpick with it. The way the show is, and I understand that you have that you have to cut things for commercials and put them together here, but I'm watching it on the internet, so even the scenes that probably aren't split up on television for a commercial, they feel very juxtaposed to one another. Like you have the trial scene, and then immediately after you have Bolin and his girlfriend, and they're interacting with each other, and it's hysterical. But you go from very serious plot to suddenly very humorous, and it's not like one leads into the other where the humor is mixed in well. It's more like serious thing. Bolin says something that's supposed to be funny, but it just interrupts the moment, and then it's back to serious thing. Then Bolin says something that's supposed to be funny, and then it's back to serious thing. And I appreciate Bolin's humor. It's good humor. It's just I hate making comparisons to Avatar: The Last Airbender because these two shows are not the same. They're exploring different topics, or at least they're supposed to be exploring different topics and looking at things from different angles. And they're supposed to be different shows, and one's supposed to be good and fresh. But here's the thing: Sokka, who was the comedy relief in Airbender. As a matter of fact, I would be hesitant to call Sokka the comedy relief in Airbender because all of them, Toph, Suki, Katara, Aang, they all had their comedic moments where you could laugh at them as characters, and you saw all of these different sides. Yes, they're serious. Yes, they're this. Yes, they're that, but they also have this side where they make mistakes or things happen that are funny, and that's just the way that life rolls on. Here, you have Korra, who has to deal with all this heavy stuff. You've got Bolin, who's the comic relief, and then you've got Asami and Mako, who are just basically playing the hot sidekicks. And Bolin is acting so stupidly. I mean, seriously. They're robbing Asami of screen time. They're robbing Asami and they're robbing Mako, whatever. They're robbing them both of screen time. And these are two characters that are very good characters. They're very well developed. We saw a lot of them in the first season. We got to know them. Now they've basically just been sidelined as, oh look, they just so happen to be here. Oh look, let's offer a little bit of advice throughout the show. But other than that, they really serve no purpose. They're exposition characters to just drive the plot forward. They seem to be becoming more 2D as the show goes on. And you thought that you were actually going to get a pretty good storyline with Asami, at least, because you have at the beginning in episode 1, Asami comes down in the plane. She gets out of the plane. It's like, we have this great product. Oh, by the way, no one's going to invest with us. Don't worry, I've got a plan. And then as she's walking away, you just see that weight on her shoulder, and you see all the stuff she's dealing with. You think to yourself, okay, this is going to be interesting as we explore Asami's plotline. No plotline. Literally, Asami goes to the South Pole. She strikes this deal with I keep forgetting his name, Balcor or something like that. She strikes this deal with the rich guy, and that's it. My troubles are over. Well, plot's over. Is this really the person that we want Bolin to hook up with? I mean, do we really want to take idiotic Bolin and have Asami, who is kind and cultured, and who's supposed to be this very intelligent and great character? Are we really going to try and stick them together as love interests? I mean, it just seems like it's so overused. Like, we've traveled this path before, and what's more, at the end of that path, we didn't like what happened. So, I don't know what they're going to do there. I mean, we've got Korra and Mako. They have their relationship. You don't see much of it. You see driblets of it now and then where Mako is there as, again, the supporting character, but he doesn't get any screen time, so he doesn't get to develop. I mean, honestly, they're developing Tenzin and his kids and his family quite a bit, and I'm curious as to what they're planning to do with that, because other than being a side story, unless it ties into the main plot, I don't see how developing his family and his family situation is important to this story. I have such hopes and high aspirations. Maybe I need to lower my expectations and just look at it as a kid's show that I can laugh through. And I can, and maybe it's just something that I should look at the storyboard and just appreciate the artwork. The artwork in this story is wonderful. If you look at my thumbnails, I always go through the show and I pick out what I think are the best ones, but there are so many good scenes. I remember just for episode 2, it was so hard to just pick one thumbnail to stick on the front of that video because there were just so many well-drawn scenes. And you just hit that print screen button and you're like, voila, you have this beautiful picture. The story, as I said, the storyboards are awesome. We have good characters, but we're rushing through the story. They're making the same mistake they made in the first season. They are rushing through this. They're rushing to get through this story without developing it properly. Our villain isn't even relatable. He's playing it so he's not even playing it to the point of parody. He's playing it straight, and it's not working. I heard this said once about how to play a villain, and I hope the Avatar people hear this, and I hope they listen to what I have to say. When you have a villain, the way to make that villain good is not to just make him like the Mwah! Not like me. I'm an over-the-top villain. You never make your villain like that. You always try to show where they're coming from and the reasons that they're doing things for. Like why do people get into the mafia? Why do people do this? Well, they grew up poor, and they said, well, I'm not going to do that. But how do I do that? I have to lead this life of crime. Or they came from a bad family, or it was the fault of somebody who didn't love them, or they had an abusive parent, or some. There's always something that they use, or they're addicted to some kind of drug. There's always something that they use as a scapegoat for the reason why they're doing things. They themselves feel they're justified in doing what they do. With Umalak, you kind of get that. It's almost like you can see the justification, but we have no backstory for that. If we only knew what his motives were, we would be able to move forward. Instead, we're just playing him as a straight villain. At least with Amon, you had this backstory that, oh, by the way, he posed this backstory that, oh, by the way, I was hurt. I was personally destroyed by firebenders, so this is why we need to do things. Like, okay, I think he's lying, but at the very least there's a backstory there, and we know that it's something. We know he's lying, so it has to be something else. This one, it feels like he's playing it straight, and it's confusing at best because everything is so juxtaposed to one another. All the storylines are juxtaposing, and it's just becoming very choppy, very tangled. I want this show to do so well. I'm gonna keep watching. I will keep watching. I'm genuinely interested in what is happening. But they're starting to lose me. The hook is working its way out. I mean, right now the only reason I want to see what happens in the next episode is, one, I want to see what happens with Asami, because we have this great character that we're not using, and I need to know whether or not she's going to get in there or she's going to turn into Nicholas from the Black Eyed Peas. She disappears on screen. And two, I want to know what happens between Bolin and Korra's cousin. I want to see that plotline resolve, because I think it's going to be very funny. And obviously I want to see more of Arik. But that's pretty much all I have to say. It was an okay episode. Personally, if somebody had told me what this was about, I wouldn't have watched it. But at least we have a start to something. Now it seems like the Civil War is going to start. The bigger plot is finally moving, and we will see what this leads up to. So I will see you in the next one, and keep cool, Avatar fans.